So with anxiety disorders, what you have happen is you have a very quick cycle begin. So not only does the person have a fear of something, which then can go into that sort of disordered cycle that we have, that then becomes our disorder. Although we've always got the disorder, OCD, what we don't realise is that when we're recovered, we're not in that cycle all the time. We're out of that cycle. So what happens is we only feel it at certain times when we're in it. Now, what I think is very important to think of OCD or GAD or any of these anxiety disorders like that, because it's very easy to start thinking something's doing it to us. We're trapped in something we can't get out of. So I think that's a very, very important message, to think of it as like we're just the same as we always were. We're not broken. We're just a little bit scared of something or a bit sensitized at the moment. I think that's a very important part. Claire Weekes dwells on that a lot in her books. Now, what you're noticing is you have a very, very quick fear cycle that starts. So often we're not scared of the thing that we think we're scared of. What actually happens is we have something where we think, okay, if I thought that would be very scary, or whatever, or that would scare me. And what's actually happening is you've got a very, very quick fear cycle loop that starts, and we don't even notice it. It's like quickly fear locked on. So often we're not so scared of the thing that we think we're scared of. It's more just an anxiety loop that's sort of going back around on itself of fear. That's very much what happens. So a lot of anxiety, the culprit, the thing that's the sort of primary driver of the problem, is fear that's happening in there. That's what tends to happen. So you've got fear that causes a problem. And then what you've also got is, then when that's gone on for a while, you get scared of being scared of being. You get fear of the fear cycle. So you're scared of being scared of being scared. It sounds complicated, but it's like you're aware that there's a loop of fear. Okay, so you're aware that you're scared of being scared, but then you become scared of that cycle. So you're scared that you're going to be locked in that cycle forever. All that is basically just being scared of being scared again. It's exactly the same thing, but we think it's different because we think it's out of our control. We think it's going to be doing it to us for forever, and that there's going to be no way around that. And that's not the reality. That's not how these things work. So it's really, a great book for that, and why it's in my reading list, is Claire Weekes' Self-Help for Your Nerves. Paul David's book, Anxiety No More, is a fantastic sort of interpretation of what Claire Weekes said, and then brought very much into terms for generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and so on. Now, obviously, OCD has a lot more to it than that. It's not simplistic usually. Usually what happens is just the Claire Weekes on its own doesn't get under OCD, because you will have fears, like maybe that are related to a certain thing that you're scared of. So it might be you're terrified of contracting HIV, coronavirus, something like that. And when you try and just leave that there and not be scared, your body is interpreting that as a real threat. So it will keep on going with that. So that we have to get under that fear and become generally more accepting. And until we become generally more accepting, it does tend to persist. Hence why it's so important to get under the main irrational beliefs and the main fears that are contributing to it, which the best way is through the founder of CBT, Albert Ellis, is books that are on the reading list. First main book that's on my reading list, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything. That's a fantastic for getting under that. And if you follow this page and have a look through, I do break down in great detail all of these fears and how you have to get there. Basically, all that's happening with any of your problems, you haven't got any different genes to each other, like where one person's far worse than another. Once it's in this sort of chronic format, this chronic form, it's primarily, one sec, let's just come and sit over here. It's not exactly the most comfortable standing up there with this phone. What's happening there primarily is what you're doing is you become. I've lost what I was saying now. Basically what happens with all these things is you're only scared of something. Okay, that's all it is. There's not much difference There's no difference genetically really between any of you when it's in this chronic format. And you're feeling it chronically and sort of severely, that would probably be genetically, I imagine, all about the same, right? The only difference is the beliefs and perspectives that you hold that allow it to get a hold and to function the way it does. So that's the only thing that's driving it, okay? So that's why when I'm recovering, I can't tell the difference between having OCD or not, but I was very, very severely affected by OCD. And so there wasn't any sort of, all right, there was a genetic catalyst at the beginning, but then there's not much variation. So the main thing that's keeping you guys going is your beliefs and perspectives that form the framework, how the anxiety functions in you. So that's basically what's happening there. Now let me have a look at some of these questions quickly. I've got my washing line in the background there. Not what I want to really have in the video, but it's having to do washing in quarantine. So let's have a look. I've been trying the radical idea of accepting my fears, even though they're heinous. I'm trying to accept uncertainty. Well, you're not going to be able to accept them too easily if you are terrified of them. You have to break them down so they're less irrational, because if you don't do that, the brain doesn't really digest them. So, for example, if you think HIV is the end of the world, the worst thing ever, you're not going to be able to accept that. You need to break it down so you can see, well, I could still live a long life. Life still wouldn't be the end of the world. I would still be able to function. I would still be able to have relationships. I'd still be able to carry on. And that's what gets under it. Why do my thoughts feel so real? Because OCD is going to make it feel as real as it can possibly get. That's its power. If it didn't feel real, no one would give a damn about it. I'm scared of my loved ones getting old and dying. Well, that's what is going to happen. It's not so much, you were probably not scared of that all your life, maybe a bit in bits when you were a child, but most of the time you're okay with it. It's about in getting comfortable knowing that does happen. It's not it's something we can get used to. It's not the end of the world in terms of our world still carries on and we do adjust to it. All humans will lose everyone we love. That's the nature of how our lives operate. But in reality, underneath it, it's not as scary as we think. It's our interpretation of it, because it seems very scary because we've known them all our life. We haven't been without them. So that's what frightens us. Okay, let's have a look here. When you start practicing uncertainty and acceptance, does the intrusions increase? Well, they can turn up as you're trying to get rid of them. They can turn up a little bit. The intensity of them, that can happen. And that's because your brain knows that you're trying to get rid of it. When you're trying to get rid of anxiety, it turns up because it's designed to save your life. So you want to leave it there. You want to not try and get rid of it. You want to try and just leave it as present and think, okay, this is going to come along for the ride, is one of my sayings, because otherwise when we're trying to eliminate it, that's what makes it raise up more. Is watching your live stream a form of reassurance? No, it's a form of learning about OCD and getting a better understanding to help you. If you're doing constantly check it, trying to get every single bit of information all day, every day like that, well, that can be a little bit compulsive. But usually, if you're just checking in and getting some new advice and doing that daily, that's okay. But if you're feeling this urge, I've got to quickly get more information, then you wanna refrain from that and then view it and observe yourself in just slightly smaller doses. Not in slightly small doses, in smaller doses, and do that. But I don't think you're really going to have too much problem with this account, because it's not a reassurance base, and it's somewhere that's improving your knowledge. So you learn a lot on here, and there's lots of free tools to pretty much all the everything on all the content's free. Only the coaching isn't. So you've got loads of stuff there to work with. Rob, I can't accept death. Ever since I'm terrified of the day my partners will die as a child, I had phases where I ignored it and just kept going. Now the fear is worse than ever. Well, we need to break down why you're so scared of death, because that is obviously what's causing the problem, is why you are scared, why you are terrified of death. But I'd have to look at the irrational beliefs that are fueling that. What exactly makes you, what exactly you're so scared about death? What are your irrational beliefs relating to that, that are causing the problem? Because often we have many fears. We view death as one thing, and then we forget all the other things that are behind it, the catalyst behind it. And there's lots of different irrational beliefs we have about dying. Maybe the fear of not knowing what's coming, maybe thinking, maybe some kind of religious perspective, maybe losing our family, maybe our families suffering without us there. All those kind of factors, they can add to the problem. So we have to look at those and see what those are. How to break the anxiety cycle? Well, first of all, don't want to think of it as something that we're trying to break, okay? Because that's a large part of the problem, the fact that we're trying to break a cycle, okay? That's not good, because that in itself is trying to eliminate, it's trying to eliminate the anxiety cycle, and that is not what we want to do. What we want to be doing is we want to be thinking of it as it's an anxiety cycle that's currently there at present, and we want to leave that there, and we want to have become more comfortable with it and have a better understanding of OCD and anxiety. And as we do that, then it will come down. But if you're trying to like snap a cycle, trying to break it, trying to get rid of it, that's what's causing it to fuel it more and more. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to try and break and crack a cycle. That's not advisable, because that does the absolute opposite. It's like trying to eliminate anxiety. Let's have a look. Tips on acceptance. Well, there's no quick, easy tips. It's not as simple as that. The best is to read the reading material on the reading list, get through that, and as you do that, that will help you more and more. How do we tell the difference between ourselves and intrusive feelings? Well, I think what you want to look at is the unconditional self-acceptance, because what's probably causing you a problem here is the fear of not knowing what's what. And if you're trying to work out what's what all the time, that's going to cause you a lot of problems, because you're constantly... what you're doing is you're constantly trying to... I'm moving around because I've got a bit bad back because I've been working on this phone so much, and when you do that, it's because you're constantly on the phone. My back's a little bit injured at the moment. How do we tell the difference between... Yeah, well, you've got to think is stop trying to tell the difference between it, for one, and get used to the uncertainty of not knowing, getting used to the uncertainty of whatever you feel you feel, and unconditional self-acceptance means you don't have to work out any of that, because you can accept yourself regardless, and that was key. Otherwise, you're trying to work out what's OCD, what's not, what's something to act on. You've got to go with the uncertainty. Have a rough idea, but go with the uncertainty. Otherwise, OCD is always going to give us its call to action that we've got to go and do something imminently. Okay, let's have a look. How do you get over when you know you didn't do something but you want to be wrong and you wonder if you actually did? Well, that's again to do with unconditional self-acceptance. You never need to know if your things, like people are always like, okay, when I get better, will I then know 100% that what I did was wrong, that I did the right thing in the past? Does my real event OCD go away? Yes, but to me it wouldn't even matter if my real event had come true, because with unconditional self and life acceptance it doesn't make a difference. But I can see it, yes, from the other side as unlikely, uncertainty. Some of them I can see very clear that didn't happen. Some of the others I'm not so sure about, it's uncertain, but completely comfortable, no anxiety with that. Just wanted to say your best, appreciate so much you do, thank you very much. When anxiety is unbearable, do we still take it for the ride? Well, absolutely, you've got to take it for the ride, because it's got to come along whilst you're trying to get better, because that's what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to get it all solved to get it understood straight away. It's a learning process, so you're going to have to bring it from the ride, because what else are you going to do? Just sit down and not do anything. Okay, guys, I think I'm not going to be on here too much today, because I've got quite a few things to do this afternoon, but I'll be back on tomorrow doing another live, talking about doing questions and answers and so on different things, and I'll see you guys on there. All right, guys, see you later.